Letting go isn't losing. It's choosing peace over control. And yet, how many of us are stuck mentally replaying conversations, analyzing someone's silence, wondering what they think, waiting for them to return, to understand, to approve, to change? This attachment, this constant looking outward, is one of the greatest blocks to manifestation. The truth is hard to hear at first, but once you grasp it, everything shifts. What you're chasing is already within you. What you're waiting for, you become, and those who seem so important today may only be mirrors showing you where your focus has been. Neville Goddard taught that your world is yourself pushed out. So if your world feels unstable, if relationships feel uncertain, if someone's behavior seems to control your emotional state, then that's your signal. Not to chase harder, not to explain more, but to come back to yourself. Because the moment you shift inward, the entire world begins to rearrange. In this video, you're going to discover something most people never realize. Letting go of others isn't rejection or loss, it's realignment. It's how you regain your creative power. And when you stop trying to change others and instead change the story you hold about yourself, life begins to unfold with an effortless beauty. Many people say they believe in manifestation. They affirm, they visualize, but they're still checking their phone every few minutes, still hoping someone else will validate the dream. Neville was clear: this kind of split attention weakens the creative act. You cannot serve two masters. Either you serve the state you desire, or you serve the fear of losing someone. One expands you, the other keeps you in emotional chains. You'll learn how to cut those invisible cords, not out of anger, not to punish, but to free yourself into a new reality. Because when you stop chasing, you start magnetizing. When you stop watching others, you start seeing yourself clearly. And when you finally return to your own identity, the one that is whole, worthy, chosen, the right people align effortlessly, not because you forced them, but because your state shifted. There's a reason people stay stuck in repeated cycles. It's not because they don't want more. It's because they're afraid to let go of the idea that someone else holds the key. In this video, you're going to learn how to reframe what letting go really means. You'll discover why focusing on yourself isn't selfish. It's the only way forward. We'll explore how your assumptions create bridges of incidents that unfold without force or effort. And you'll see why the inner conversation you hold is far more powerful than anything spoken aloud. Neville said, change your conception of yourself, and you will automatically change the world in which you live. That includes relationships. That includes people who seem immovable. That includes situations that feel impossible. The catch? You must be willing to detach from needing it to come through a specific person or outcome. And this is where most people resist. They say, but I want it to be them, or I need this situation to fix itself. That's where they lock themselves out of their own power. Neville didn't teach control. He taught assumption. He taught alignment. He taught identity. And he taught that the inner man is the only reality. The outer world is just a printout of what you're assuming deep inside. So in this video, you'll learn how to stop trying to edit the printout and how to go directly to the source, your state of being. You'll learn practical Neville-based tools to redirect your focus, to transform your inner self-talk, and to rest in the knowing that you don't need anyone to complete you. Because once you focus on yourself fully, once you walk in the assumption that you are already who you desire to be, something remarkable happens. The people, events, and outcomes that match that state begin to show up without chasing, without stress, without noise. Neville's teachings are simple in principle, but profound in practice. And if you stay with this video till the end, you'll walk away with more than just knowledge. You'll feel the shift. You'll feel the call to return to your power, to reclaim your attention, and to finally let go, not in sadness, but in strength. So whether you're in the middle of a relationship challenge or simply tired of feeling like your emotions are tied to someone else's behavior, this message is for you. Stay present. Let each word settle. Let each idea speak to the deeper part of you, the part that knows your peace was never meant to be negotiated. Let's begin this journey inward. Welcome to Ignis Mindset, where your inner world becomes your greatest teacher. If you're ready to walk in peace, to manifest with clarity, and to focus on your own becoming, then make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below your new I am identity. This is your time now. Let them go and return to you. Before we talk about the need to let go of others and focus inward, we must understand a core principle from Neville Goddard that reshapes everything. Creation is finished. He said, creation is finished. What you desire already exists. This statement is more than philosophical. It's a direct instruction on how reality operates. The world you long for, the version of yourself you admire, the peace you crave in relationships, it all exists. Not in the distant future, not as a potential, but right now as a state of consciousness. Neville explained that every possibility already lives in imagination. When you choose to dwell in the feeling of that state, you aren't creating it, you're selecting it. This changes the whole game. Most people try to make things happen. They push, they worry, they act from fear. But all of that energy signals one thing: lack. It's the mindset of someone who believes the thing they want doesn't exist yet. So they work harder, they overthink, they attach themselves to others as the supposed key to fulfillment. But according to Neville, this very effort is the block. Chasing something, whether it's a person, a job, or approval, is like saying, "This is not mine. I don't have it." And what we assume as true becomes our lived experience. When Neville says creation is finished, he invites you to stop doing and start assuming, not lazily, not passively, but with the full inner authority of someone who knows the state I claim is the state that claims me. So if you keep trying to control outcomes, if you need someone else to change for your peace to return, you've stepped out of alignment with the truth. You're chasing a reflection instead of working with the cause. This is why he emphasized feeling. It's not about seeing results. It's about embodying the state now, feeling from the end, walking in it, thinking from it. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you shift your attention from the scene to the source, from outer people to inner perception. Now let's explore what Neville called the inner man, the only reality. Everything you experience in the outer world begins with your inner speech, your self-concept, and your beliefs. Neville made it clear, the inner man is the creative center. Others do not have the power to act independently in your world. They are drawn into your life as actors on the stage of your assumptions. This is not metaphor. It is literal psychological law. Think of someone who seems distant, cold, or unavailable. The more you observe them this way, the more that story solidifies. You repeat it in your mind. You react emotionally. You rehearse what they did and what they didn't say. And in doing so, you continue to recreate that version of them. But what happens if you drop the story? What happens if you stop needing them to show up a certain way and instead go within to the state where you feel seen, respected, and valued? The moment you shift your inner conversation, something subtle yet powerful begins to happen. You don't chase, you don't argue, you simply dwell in the feeling of your chosen self, and the world bends to that inner atmosphere. This is not magic, it is structure. Neville said, the world is a mirror, forever reflecting what you are doing within yourself. If you're waiting for someone to validate your worth, you'll keep feeling unworthy. If you're speaking as if the situation must change for your peace to begin, peace will always be postponed. But when you declare within, I am already the one I choose to be, and you rest in that identity, you no longer require anyone to behave a certain way. This is how control ends. Not by force, but by surrendering to truth. Letting go is not giving up. It's releasing the illusion that someone else must deliver your joy. Neville never told us to fix others. He never said to plead or convince. He taught one thing: shift your inner state, and everything else follows. This is why the inner man is the only reality. Because if you persist in an inner assumption long enough, the outer world must catch up. It has no choice. It is not autonomous. It is obedient. So why do we hold on to people? Because we think they are the source of the feeling we want. But Neville invites us to go deeper. He says, if you desire love, become the state of love. If you want peace, rest in the assumption that peace is yours now. If you want to feel chosen, declare within, I am always chosen, and walk in that knowing. There is no need to analyze how or when it will show up. That's not your job. Your only task is to maintain the assumption, to live in the end, to speak from the place where it's already done. And here's the beautiful part. When you let go of needing anyone to change, you step into freedom. You're no longer ruled by reactions. You don't measure your worth by someone else's actions. You become steady, calm, magnetic. This is the state from which true manifestation occurs. Not from anxiety, not from need, but from inner certainty. So when Neville says creation is finished, he's telling you there's nothing missing. Stop searching, choose your state, and dwell there. And when he says the inner man is the only reality, he's reminding you everything is happening inside. The people you cling to, the circumstances you fear, the events you replay, these are projections. They change only when you change. You don't need more effort. You need more inner alignment. The world moves according to your self-talk, your inner conversations, your dominant feeling. So speak as if it's done, feel as if it's done, and let others go. Not with bitterness, but with quiet power. Because once you return to yourself, once you assume the state of being that aligns with your vision, you won't have to force anything. The reflection will come. The scene will shift. The world must respond. Letting them go doesn't mean abandoning them. It doesn't mean cutting people off or pretending you don't care. In Neville Goddard's teachings, letting go is not about turning your back on others. It's about releasing emotional dependence. When you let someone go in this context, you're not dismissing them. You're freeing yourself from the belief that your inner stability depends on their behavior. That's a very different kind of power. You don't need someone to understand you, validate you, or apologize before you can feel whole. The moment you base your emotional state on someone else's response, you've handed them the power that was always meant to be yours. Letting go is returning that power to its rightful place, your own self-concept. It's anchoring so deeply into the identity of who you choose to be that the outside world loses its grip on how you feel. Neville's approach was always inner first. He taught that if someone in your world is not reflecting what you desire, you must not beg them to change. Instead, you return inward and adjust your self-image. You ask, what am I believing about myself that this interaction continues to repeat? You let go not to forget them, but to reclaim yourself. The beautiful thing is, letting go isn't cold, it's compassionate. Because when you stop expecting others to make you feel secure, you no longer pressure them, resent them, or cling to them. You interact from wholeness, and wholeness invites harmony. This is where Neville's technique of revision becomes profoundly useful, especially when it comes to relationships. Revision is not wishful thinking. It's the intentional act of reshaping how you remember a past event, so you stop carrying pain into the present moment. Let's say there was a conversation that hurt you. You were misunderstood, rejected, or ignored. Most people replay that moment, reinforcing the wound. But Neville said you could go back in imagination and change the scene. Hear them say something different. See their expressions soften. Feel the relief of a peaceful resolution. You don't do this to erase reality. You do it to rewrite your inner story, because as long as you carry the emotional charge of that memory, it becomes part of your current self-concept. And your current self-concept creates your tomorrow. So if someone disappointed you, revise the moment, not by calling them, not by forcing closure, but by closing your eyes and imagining the event unfolding differently. Feel it change. Accept the new version as real. And then watch what happens. Not always instantly, but often strikingly. You'll notice your feelings toward them shift. Sometimes they change. Sometimes the situation dissolves entirely. Why? Because the outer reflects the inner. You don't need confrontation to transform a relationship. You need clarity within. Neville never told us to argue with people to be seen. He said to speak within ourselves what we wish they had said, and to do it until it feels true. When you revise the past, you reclaim your future. You stop dragging old energy into new opportunities, and you give people the chance to meet the new version of you, free from bitterness, free from need. Now let's talk about the law of assumption and how it changes your relationship to people who seem unsupportive, distant, or even resistant to your growth. Neville said, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. That includes your interactions. Instead of trying to convince others to understand your journey, assume they already do. Instead of mentally arguing with them in your head, assume they are silently supporting you even if they don't appear to be. This isn't lying to yourself. It's choosing the state you want to live from. When you assume someone respects you, even if they currently don't, your energy shifts, your reactions shift, your tone, your posture, your expectations, everything begins to align with that new inner assumption. And others, even unknowingly, begin to play along with that script. Neville explained that people are drawn into your life to fulfill the roles you assign them in imagination. So if you keep seeing someone as the enemy of your peace, they will keep appearing that way. But if you shift within and say, this person is on my side, you change the entire frequency of the relationship. It may not happen overnight, but over time, you will notice less resistance, more flow. Sometimes they soften. Sometimes they fade away. Sometimes you simply stop needing their approval, and that releases the friction entirely. Holding on to mental arguments keeps you tied to the version of you that feels unseen. Letting go of those arguments is an act of faith, not in them, but in your own ability to lead from inner stability. Your peace does not require anyone else's permission. Your clarity is not up for negotiation. So when you assume the best of others, not out of naivety, but from a place of inner calm, you shift the energy of your world. You're no longer reacting, you're creating. You're no longer caught in loops of emotional tension. You're writing new lines in your story. This is how Neville taught us to move through life, not as victims of what others say or do, but as authors of what we accept and embody. Letting go, revision, assumption. These are not three different tools. They are one continuous motion of returning to self, refining the inner state, and watching the outer world follow. You don't need them to change. You need to change the version of you that keeps expecting disappointment. Speak differently. Remember differently. Assume differently. And soon the people around you will either align or become irrelevant to your peace. Not because you shut them out, but because you finally let go of the belief that your peace was ever in their hands. I am chosen. I am worthy. These are not just affirmations to feel good in the moment. They are identity builders. When you speak these words and allow them to settle deep into your consciousness, you begin to live from a new place, one where approval is no longer a requirement. Neville Goddard taught that the only thing that ever needs to change is your conception of yourself. Not what others think of you, not what they say or do, just the image you carry of who you are. Choosing yourself is not an act of selfishness, it's alignment. It's stepping back into the truth that your sense of worth was never meant to be outsourced. When you stop performing for acceptance and instead rest in the assumption that you are already enough, you start to notice that people either rise to meet that version of you or they fade away. And both are answers. You don't have to hold on to anyone just because they were there when you didn't yet know your worth. As your identity elevates, your surroundings adjust. Some people celebrate your clarity. Some resist it. Some disappear entirely. But none of that is your concern. You're not here to manage other people's responses. You're here to live as the version of yourself that no longer begs for validation. Neville reminded us again and again, your world is a mirror, and that mirror reflects your inner conversations, the silent words you repeat, the stories you rehearse, the assumptions you carry into every room. If your mind is filled with arguments, explanations, or attempts to defend your value to others, then the outer world will continue to offer opportunities for more of that same pattern. The shift happens when you stop rehearsing what you wish they'd say and start speaking what you choose to believe, not to them, to yourself, instead of playing back imaginary dialogues where they finally understand you. Let your inner speech become peaceful. Let it affirm your security. I trust myself. I am okay, even when they don't see it. My peace is not up for negotiation. This is what Neville called inner speech. He warned us that no external change can last if inner conversations remain unchanged. And just as importantly, the outer world must eventually conform when the inner world becomes firm in its new tone. Speak to yourself in the way you wish others would, not to change them, but to stabilize you. Inner conflict is a sign you're waiting for permission. Inner calm is a sign you've already chosen yourself. And when that becomes your resting place, everything else begins to reorganize, naturally, without effort, without force. This is where the principle of living in the end becomes so powerful. Many people think they're practicing the law of assumption, but they're actually waiting on someone else to change before they feel free. That's not living in the end, that's postponing peace. Neville was clear. Living in the end means imagining the desired reality as already complete. Not someday, not when they finally treat you better. Now, if your end is emotional freedom, imagine how it feels to already have that. If your end is mutual respect, walk as though you are already respected. Don't base your identity on what someone else gives or withholds. You must stop making other people conditions of your fulfillment. Your desired state is not something they hand to you. It is something you embody. And once embodied, it must be reflected. That's the law. So ask yourself, if no one ever apologized, if no one ever understood, if they stayed exactly as they are, could you still be at peace? If the answer is no, then you haven't yet claimed the state. You're waiting, you're bargaining, and that's where power slips away. But if the answer becomes yes, yes, I can be whole regardless of what they do, then you have stepped into the fullness of your own authority. That is the shift Neville wanted for us. Not control over others, but full alignment with ourselves. When you live in the end, you carry a tone of completion. You're not checking your phone, not replaying the last conversation, not scanning for signs. You're settled. You're resolved. And that energy speaks louder than any words. I am already at peace. Say it slowly. Let it echo inside you. Everything aligns around me. Feel what that means, not because you forced it, not because they gave it to you, but because you chose to dwell in the state of fulfillment. The world must echo back what you persistently assume. Neville never taught us to manipulate others into becoming what we want. He taught us to rise in consciousness until the outer world had no choice but to reflect it. This is not magic. It's law. When you no longer need them to understand, they often do. When you no longer crave their attention, they tend to give it. When you stop rehearsing the wound, it stops repeating. But even if they don't change, you are not shaken, because you have built your foundation within. The version of you that no longer waits, no longer argues, no longer seeks validation, that version is powerful. That version is magnetic. That version is the one who truly lets them go, not in bitterness, but in wholeness. And from that state, anything is possible. When you no longer try to manipulate the outcome, the bridge of incidents appears. Neville Goddard described this bridge as the series of natural events that unfold once you've assumed your desired end, and it never happens the way you expect. People change without warning. Circumstances shift in the most ordinary yet uncanny ways, but this only happens when you stop watching the pot boil, when you stop needing to control each step. There's a difference between planting a seed and digging it up every hour to check on it. When you assume your state and remain faithful to it, the bridge will carry you even if you don't see how. The moment you try to make someone behave a certain way or obsess over whether they're matching your inner state, you're stepping out of trust and back into control. Micromanaging the process only adds friction. Stay in your state. That is your only job. Let the bridge unfold. Let people either rise to meet your new frequency or exit quietly. You are not here to chase anyone. You are here to anchor into your identity so fully that the outer world has no option but to conform or remove itself. This is exactly what Neville himself had to learn. When he wanted to travel to Barbados, but lacked the money and passage, his teacher Abdullah did not flinch. Neville told him he desired to go, and Abdullah simply replied, "You are in Barbados," not as a future hope, as a fact. When Neville protested and brought up the outer circumstances, Abdullah slammed the door. Literally, he would not entertain Neville's doubts. He held him in the state, and Neville, through this radical firmness, learned the power of remaining in the end, regardless of what appearances said. Abdullah never coddled Neville's fears. He demanded that Neville persist in the assumption that it was already done. That's the kind of inner strength we must develop. The world outside might offer reasons to worry. People might act in contradiction to your desire, but none of that has power unless you agree with it. You must become unmoved in your inner vision. That's what trust looks like. Not pretending the old reality doesn't exist, but refusing to serve it any longer. And to do that, you need a clean mental diet. If you constantly replay what they said, how they looked at you, what they might be thinking, you're feeding your mind with noise. Neville warned that the inner speech and dominant thoughts of today create the reality of tomorrow. So what are you feeding your consciousness? Are you nourishing it with peace, assurance, and clarity? Or are you feeding it with doubt, fear, and over-analysis? Let go of the mental clutter. Drop the inner dialogues that lead nowhere. Feed your mind with statements like, "I am secure. Everything unfolds in perfect timing. I am not waiting. I am living." When your mind becomes a place of quiet power, the world around you begins to mirror that same calm. People speak to you differently. Opportunities arise without effort. Situations resolve themselves without drama. And it's not because you forced anything. It's because you became aligned with a new internal standard. That's what detachment really is. It's not coldness. It's not withdrawal. It's emotional clarity. It means you no longer react to every little movement outside of you. You stop needing others to validate your feelings or confirm your assumptions. You already know who you are. You can love someone deeply and still detach from needing their approval. This is the power of non-reactivity. When you stop chasing, you become magnetic. What you release out of trust often returns in a higher form, or something far better shows up to replace it. Detachment is simply the refusal to let the outer world govern your inner peace. You're no longer a puppet being pulled by what they said or didn't say. You're sovereign, centered, anchored in yourself. And that brings us to one of the most overlooked tools in manifestation, self-love. Not the kind of self-love that just says treat yourself, but the kind that shows up daily. The kind that speaks gently to yourself when you're doubting. The kind that affirms I am worthy, even when no one's watching. The kind that takes responsibility for your assumptions instead of blaming the world for not responding. Others treat you according to the energy you emit. If you expect disappointment, you'll find it. If you walk with the quiet confidence of someone who knows their worth, you'll notice that others begin to reflect that back. Self-love is not a luxury. It's the foundation. You cannot expect anyone else to mirror back what you haven't first given yourself. When you walk into a room carrying the state of someone who is whole, needed, and respected, people feel it even if they can't name it. And it's not about arrogance, it's about alignment. You are no longer trying to earn your place. You are claiming it internally and letting the world catch up. This energy, this internal stillness, creates ripple effects. People start responding differently, not because you forced them to change, but because your self-perception shifted. The mirror can only reflect what stands before it. And so, as you continue to embody your desired state, let go of what was. Let go of needing to manage others. Let the bridge unfold. Let your assumptions settle in like roots. And let your peace be your confirmation, not the reaction of others, not their approval, not the outcome you think you need. You've already crossed into the new state. Everything else is just catching up. You're not being distant. You're being deliberate. When you stop clinging, chasing, or needing others to play a role in your happiness, you're not giving up on love or connection. You're stepping into alignment. Focusing on yourself isn't selfish. It's how real change begins. When you choose to let go emotionally, you're not walking away from life. You're creating it from the inside out. You're no longer reacting to the old story. You're choosing to live from the new one. Letting go is not giving up. It's trusting that what's meant for you already exists and that you'll meet it naturally through your alignment, not your effort. Because when your self-concept shifts, everything else adjusts. People either rise to meet you or they quietly fall away. Both are forms of peace. And that peace isn't empty. It's filled with power, the kind that doesn't need to prove, beg, or explain. So as you move forward, let this truth stay with you. You come first. Your state, your identity, your inner world. It's the only thing you ever had control over. And it's the only thing that truly creates lasting change. You are the cause. Your self-concept is the key. Focus on it and watch how everything else falls into place. Carry this calm certainty with you, not as a performance, but as a quiet knowing. The world will rise to meet the version of you who no longer seeks permission to exist. Thank you for spending this time with us today. If this message resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to our channel, Ignis Mindset. We're here to remind you of your power, your clarity, and your peace every step of the way.